What's the official name of the Aerodome?
Airdome.
Airdome?
The Connacht Airdome.
Like the sponsored by Apple?
Well, like I think it should just be called the Mercedes-Benz Superdome and just be done with it. Just completely rip it off completely. But the NUIG Connacht Airdome is the official name. So
obviously it made its proper debut on TV over the last while, but I think it's open 18 months, is it?
I think so, yeah. Like there's definitely been. This is not the first taste that people have got of the Airdome. It's just the first kind of competitive football and a slew of matches there. Yeah, okay. Neil, I think you can hear us now properly, can you?
Yeah, can do.
Yeah, Zoom had a bit of a meltdown, but it's all been sorted. Anyway, look, instead of me explaining your piece, you're much better at talking about this. So why feel the need at the moment to juxtapose the quality of facilities that the GAA have managed to get with the ongoing campaign for Ireland to host a part of the World Cup?
Well, I just thought it was interesting because, it was the first competitive inter-county fixture, so there was a lot of publicity around the Airdome. And at the same time, the stories were coming out about how, it looked like the focus might shift from bidding from the 2030 World Cup, which they had been told that maybe that's not going to be a runner for them, to the 2028 European Championships. And with that in mind, I thought it would be a decent opportunity as a break point for the FAI to say, actually, no, let's not proceed with this, because I think we've kind of been obsessed with these kind of big events, and it was kind of used or misused as almost a barometer for how healthy Irish football was. Like we hosted the Europa League final in the Aviva Stadium, isn't that great? And, well, no, not really. Like, with two Portuguese teams, which didn't really appeal to anyone, and it didn't have any effect in terms of positive effect really in terms of Irish football. And again, I'm just kind of a bit perplexed that when there's so much to be done in Irish football, the FAI is emerging from this huge mess, and there's so much work to be done. I don't know why you would kind of take on board an extra project like that, which will inevitably demand extra resources and attention, when I think the focus should be on building from the bottom up. And a key part of that is facilities. Like all the core objectives that were mentioned in the kind of outline draft strategy, about a healthy national league, developing women and girls football, proper pathways, like they're all underpinned by facilities. You can't do any of that without having good facilities, and for the main part, the facilities in Irish football just aren't good enough.
And they're not good enough, really, from the top down. The League of Ireland facilities is still kind of one of the most outstanding sores in Irish football, that actually it's not very comfortable to go to matches, and it's hard to bring a crowd when the facilities aren't there. However, we have seen that if you build the facilities like you do in Tala, the crowds will follow.
Exactly, and there have been some improvement, like the showgrounds in Sligo has improved a lot. The Brandywell and Turner's Cross, so there is movement on that. It's not like it's slow, and that's a frustration. And I guess one of the things to bear in mind too is, like, Dalymount Park will be rebuilt, but like the whole thing, that was a big thing that was tied in with Euro 2020. We co-host Euro 2020. We're going to get Dalymount Park rebuilt as a legacy of. Not a sod has been turned on that. Like, it's only at the kind of design stage. And similarly, there's a planned centre of excellence for Glanmire in Munster, which was due to be part of that Euro 2020 legacy. And the same thing, nothing's happened. So there are projects there which can be moved on, but they haven't moved on. And I don't know. I just feel like hosting a major tournament, it's kind of designed to appeal to the event junkie element of Ireland, which is fine if everything else is in order, but everything else isn't in order. So why don't we just get around to sorting that first?
When you mention Dalymount and Glanmire, Neil, and the legacy projects that they are as a result of Euro 2020, would that have been the truth had there been no COVID? Like, would there have been a certain amount of UEFA payments that actually would have generated enough income for those pretty big ticket projects to actually happen?
Well, it wasn't solely dependent on UEFA money as such. And COVID has obviously been an issue in terms of stalling some things as well. I think the cost for Glanmire was €9 million, and that was, although it was, that was kind of been driven by the FAI. And in fairness, you'd be loath to give him credit, but John Delaney was kind of a driving force in terms of pushing the Dalymount project onto the agenda. Things were kind of drifting there with Bose. But it will be a Dublin City Council project, but the FEI played its part in kind of getting that get together. But, you know, it's one thing kind of saying you're going to do it, another thing doing it, and you know, that hasn't happened. I do think the financial benefits of hosting or co-hosting tournaments are generally overstated. You know, we're well used to costs here overrunning, so whatever needed to be done in terms of training grounds for teams or whatever else, that may have ended up costing more than we anticipated. You know, like just in terms of human resources, a lot of FEI staff would have been essentially seconded to that project. So that's time they're spending away from Irish football and such. So, you know, there's a cost there, and whether you get that back in terms of the exchequer is debatable.
Well, that's the whole point, though, isn't it? It's about the brain space that the organisation has. It's a limited organisation. Not everybody fully understands exactly what the scale and size and the operation in the FAI is. It's a medium-sized business, really. And what we need is every coaching development officer and every schools officer really busy and active and inspired. And if they're actually being asked, or other people in the organisation are being asked to do stuff which is based around maybe getting some matches involving teams not involving our country to come here at some nebulous point in the future, then they're not actively working on increasing participation, trying to lobby for better facilities, all of the stuff that actually goes into making the organisation better.
Exactly, and not like, you know, this is an organisation which has suffered redundancies. It's an organisation which has had its employees have suffered pay cuts. You know, morale, I don't think is great, and you know, but like a lot of them are really committed to what they're doing, which is developing Irish football. And you know, I know for a fact that people in the FAI will be frustrated by pursuing these bids because they also see it as a distraction. You know, it's great on the big day and you can have all your dignitaries there, you know, in the VIP box, and you know, showing off the Aviva Stadium, fine stadium, but you know, it's a millstone around the neck of Irish football in terms of the cost. So, you know, I think there's a frustration on the part of people within the FEI too. You know, they see the work that needs to be done. They work hard, but they are working with already limited resources, with not great facilities at times. And, you know, I think they would have a clearer idea where the priorities lie than maybe the people at the top of the organisation sometimes.
What's your assessment at the moment of how the new FAI is actually getting on? Because it was mired in a post-Delaney era controversy. There were questions about governance. There were committees that had been set up but had never met. Strong criticism from people within the League of Ireland of the Roy Barrett chairmanship. Since then, they have appointed the CEO, and things seem to have calmed down a little bit. But at the same time, it's still a fairly leaky organisation. So how are we getting on post-Delaney?
I think things are improving. They're heading in the right direction. I think a key kind of measure of them will be the kind of strategic plan that they unveiled. As I said last July, it will be unveiled early New Year. There's been no mention of it so far, but you know, I think people are interested to see where they see the priorities, what kind of resources might be invested in those. So it's kind of a wait and see. To be honest, I don't think it's been that leaky. I think they have tightened up there, like all the stuff around Stephen Kenny's contract. So I know there were a lot of reports saying one thing or the other, but you know, I'm not sure how based on kind of solid information they were. I thought they kept it quite tight after the board meeting with regard to Stephen Kenny's contract. So I think there is a sense of improvements. There's still a lot to be done, of course. You know, you can't underestimate where they were coming from in terms of how bad a position they were in. I think Jonathan Hill comes across quite well. I think he's been open enough in terms of his dealings. There's been some improvements on women's football front in terms of the Sky deal and the equal match fees. So you know, there are positives there, and I think you would kind of have to acknowledge that progress. But like, I think the big tests are still to come.
You mentioned Stephen Kenny's contract. Do we know when we might hear any news on that? No. I don't think it's a major issue. I think these things just tend to drag on. Like if you remember, even with Martin O'Neill, like it just kept saying, it'll be done or it's been done, but you know, actually it was kind of months before it actually was. But I don't think it's an issue. I guess the synchronising all the contracts of his backroom staff, many of whom came in at different points compared to him, is probably
there's an element of kind of tidying up there. But,
okay, so we shouldn't be worried about that or concerned about the fact that it hasn't happened just yet. It's just
I don't think so. I haven't had any suggestion that that's an issue there.
Okay, in terms of the strategic plan, because this is their opportunity to unfurl what their ambition is. Like I think you mentioned Damien Duff when he was comparing the GAA facilities and the football facilities, and like Duffer's got a very unique take on the world and a unique communication style that certainly ruffled some feathers. And when he talked about Páirc Uí Chaoimh and the Liam Miller testimonial that time as well, the dinosaurs in the GAA knew exactly what he was doing. What is the right course of action for the FAI? How do they start getting parity of esteem when it comes to local funding at local level?
Well, I think a big issue is clubs probably need to collaborate and possibly even merge. Somebody's kind of made the point before that, and I know from where I live in Dublin, I can look around and say, okay, Plunkett's is Navan Road, Nafina is Glasnevin, Brendan's is Grange Gorman, and they are the clubs. But you look around in terms of football clubs, and there's loads like in Carbarel, Bowes, Dingle, Phoenix, and the problem is that because there's more football clubs, you're looking for facilities for all of them. Obviously, I assume government departments look at the overall spend of sport, and if you have multiple clubs looking for a limited amount of money, clearly the money is less. So I think the GAA have been better in terms of having one big strong club in an area rather than several kind of weaker clubs. I think that needs to be looked at, whether it's, as I say, maybe clubs to keep their own identity, but they look to have shared facilities. Also, the academy plan is going to be huge, what they're going to do there. The clubs have responded to some extent to the introduction of national leagues by appointing full-time people into academies. Bohemians were the latest, appointing Craig Sexton, and lots of other clubs have done it, Shamrock Rovers, Sligo Rovers, Cork City, and that's all positive. But I think there's an acknowledgement that we can't really have 19 or 20 academies of a requisite level in this country because the football industry isn't there. How do you manage that? Are you talking about regional academies being kind of run by the FAI, or some kind of joint academies between clubs? That's going to require facilities and an open-mindedness in terms of where we go with that, and that's all the more important because of the implications of Brexit, with players not being able to go as it stands until they're 18. There is an interesting point on that, which is going to be mentioned too, as to whether the FAI would seek a derogation from that. I think that's going to be optics-wise very important how they handle that, because if they do pursue that derogation, that's an admission that we cannot develop our own players. We are incapable of looking after the development of players in this country between the ages of 16 and 18. And that's quite the admission to make. I think most people who are involved in football would say it has been incapable as a country. We did hand them over to Britain essentially at the age of 16. But if we are making these improvements, introducing the National League, appointing full-time people, we've got to strive to be in a position where we can do it. We all know at times horrific tales of kids going over, at the age of 16, not making it, coming back broken individuals. We've got to aspire to do better. We've got to believe that we are capable of doing that, but it will require huge funding. But I think there is also an acknowledgement within government that they have to be part of that too. That what we need to do can't be done without government help, and that's a start.
I fundamentally believe that they've made a mistake in the lobbying over the last 30, 40 years by not saying we're an industry. It's always been, well, we're a sports organisation. The way horse racing always said, well, we're an industry, we create employment, we're very important to local communities. If you go to any small town in England, there's a football industry there because somebody somewhere along the way played professional football, and as a result that club is seen or has at least some kind of sense of we could be part of the football pyramid. In Ireland, the football pyramid is so diffuse that it's been very difficult. But if they could just start telling everybody, we are an industry. This is a full-time, professional, genuine career that people can start at 16 and you can become a coach and work until you're 65. And it's a reasonable, realistic idea that would be something that employs 10 to 15,000 people in Ireland. Away you go. But I haven't heard them talk like that.
No, I mean, that's one aspect of it. But the other is just pure participation, and in terms of the societal good of that, and we're kind of well aware of the challenges posed by obesity levels in Ireland. So yes, on the one hand, you could say we're an industry. On the other, say, listen, we've got a problem with obesity in Ireland. We're trying to keep kids active. Help us keep kids active, and you'll get the returns on that multiple times. So yes, you're right. You can present the business case, but there's also the societal good case, and I think a lot of times maybe that's a bit more persuasive, or it should be more persuasive. And it's an argument that GAA get across very well. Perhaps we've been less good in football in doing it, but that has to be acknowledged. Activity is huge, and the FAI is the biggest facilitator in terms of participation of activity in Ireland. So that has to be recognised. The value of that has to be recognised.
Yeah, and the Teneo, the annual survey, had soccer level with GAA for the first time, I think, in their records as the most popular sport in the country. Last point, right? The League of Ireland, I think, when you kind of step back from it, it has a billionaire owner in Derry. It has one of our greatest ever footballers cutting his management teeth at Shelbourne. It has now immediately a nasty rivalry between Dundalk and St. Pat's, the cup champions. Unfortunately, you do have a very powerful team in Rovers that might just overshadow everything. You've got Bows, who are the hipsters' choice. You've actually got loads of stories around the league that should this season be able to suck in the passer-by sports fan.
Yeah, definitely. There have been some kind of high-profile departures from the league too, with Johnny Kenny from Sligo Rovers. But that, again, it just underlines that the talent is there, and it can be hard to kind of get that message across to people who don't have an interest in the league. But Liam Scales playing for Celtic when he was playing for Shamrock Rovers earlier in the year. The talent is there. Like you say, there are all these kind of subplots, and a lot of clubs have done good stuff in the community too. They're better at kind of laying roots now and kind of realising that they are more than a first team. So there's good engagement there, and it'll be interesting to see if we have hopefully a full season without any crowd restrictions. How that kind of those interest levels or interesting stories kind of manifest themselves in terms of attendances over the year.